He's such a boring loser. I deserve so much better. My name is Williams. Williams Ridley. I'm 53 years old, and I coordinate freight shipments for Driftline Construction out of Des Moines. I fix problems. I make sure things get where they need to go when they need to be there. 27 years married to Sandra, and she just said that about me in front of 40 people at our daughter's graduation dinner. The words hung in the air like smoke. Nobody moved. My sister Beth stopped cutting her chicken. My brother-in-law Dennis put down his beer bottle so slowly I could hear the glass touch the table. Lena, my 22-year-old daughter, the whole reason we were celebrating, looked like someone had slapped her. But I knew this was coming. Not the public announcement, not the theatrics, but the leaving part. I'd seen the signs for months. Sandra had been different since she started working with that trainer Troy. Late nights at the gym, new clothes, new attitude. She started talking about finding herself and living authentically. When your wife of 27 years starts using phrases like that, you know trouble's brewing. The strange part was how calm I felt. Like I've been holding my breath for months and finally exhaled. Sandra kept talking, gesturing toward the bar where Troy waited like some kind of rescue boat. She was explaining to everyone how she'd outgrown me, how she needed someone who understood her potential. I reached into my jacket pocket. Williams, Lena whispered. Dad, what? I pulled out a small white envelope. Not fancy, just business-sized paper with Sandra's name written across the front in my handwriting. For you, I said, and handed it to her. Sandra stopped mid-sentence. She looked at the envelope like it might bite her. The restaurant had gone completely quiet. Even the busboys had stopped clearing tables. What is this? She asked. Open it. She did, right there in front of God and everybody. I watched her face change. First confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like panic. Williams, she said, her voice different now. Smaller. What did you read out loud? I said. Since we're sharing everything with everyone tonight. Her hands started shaking. That's when I knew she understood exactly what she was holding and what it meant for the show she just put on. I should probably explain how we got here. Sandra and I met in college. She was studying communications. I was in logistics management. She was bright, ambitious, full of plans. I was the steady guy who showed up when he said he would. We balanced each other out, or so I thought. After we married, I took a job with Driftline Construction. Good company, steady work, solid benefits. Sandra worked part-time at various places, a marketing firm, then a nonprofit. Then she tried real estate for a while. Nothing stuck. She always said she was between opportunities, searching for something meaningful. When Lena was born, Sandra stayed home. I worked overtime to cover the difference. 50-hour weeks became 60. 60 became 70 during busy seasons. I missed some school plays, some parent conferences. Sandra handled those things. I handled the mortgage, the car payments, the college fund. For 20 years, this worked. Then Lena went to college and Sandra got restless. She joined a gym. Started talking about personal growth and life coaching. Met Troy, who was apparently more than willing to help her discover her authentic self. The warning signs weren't subtle. Late nights at the gym. New workout clothes that cost more than my work boots. Phone calls she took in the other room. When I'd ask about her day, she'd get defensive. You wouldn't understand, she'd say. You're not exactly evolving. 6 months ago, I found a receipt for a hotel room in Cedar Rapids. When I asked about it, Sandra said she'd gone to a wellness seminar. Alone. For 2 days. On a weekend when I thought she was visiting her mother. That's when I called my lawyer friend Dennis Peterson. We'd coached Little League together years back. Good man. Honest. I asked him a hypothetical question about post-nuptial agreements and asset protection. Just curious, I said. Dennis wasn't fooled. Williams, you need to be careful here. If you're thinking what I think you're thinking, timing matters. I started paying attention. Real attention. Not just to what Sandra was saying, but to what she wasn't saying. How she looked at me. How she talked about our future. Or rather, how she stopped talking about our future altogether. 3 months ago, she mentioned Troy for the first time. My trainer thinks I should consider a career change, she said over dinner. He thinks I have untapped potential. That night, I couldn't sleep. I went to my office and started moving money. quietly, carefully, within legal limits, into accounts Sandra didn't know about, into trust that protected what I'd spent 27 years building. Because when your wife starts taking relationship advice from her personal trainer, you'd better start protecting yourself. The breaking point came 2 weeks before graduation. I walked into our house after work and found Sandra on the phone. She was laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. Light, young. When she saw me, the laughter stopped. "I have to go," she said into the phone. Yeah, I will. Tomorrow." She hung up and busied herself with dishes that were already clean. "Who was that?" I asked. "Just my trainer, Troy. He was telling me about this nutrition plan." Williams knew right then it had nothing to do with nutrition. That night, there was no more pretending. Sandra was in the bathroom brushing her teeth, and he sat on their bed. The same bed they had shared for nearly 3 decades, scanning the room. Her closet was half empty. When did that happen? He wandered over to her dresser and spotted a paper peeking out beneath her jewelry box. He hesitated but pulled it out. It was a printed email confirmation. A resort in Colorado. 2 guests. Check-in just days after Lena's graduation. Her name. Troy's name. They'd planned it all before even telling him. Williams didn't get angry. Not then. He just sat quietly, feeling a deep, hollow sadness. Sad for what they'd shared. Sad for what would never be again. Sad that she chose to make a spectacle of their breakup instead of just speaking the truth earlier. But more than anything, he felt clear, for the first time in months. That night, he printed 3 documents. Their 5-year-old post-nuptial agreement, bank records showing transfers to a trust, and notices revoking her access to joint accounts starting the day after graduation. He placed them carefully into a plain envelope and returned to bed. Sandra was already asleep or pretending. He listened to her breathing and realized how light he felt. The next morning, Sandra buzzed with excitement about graduation. She talked about the dinner, the guests, the new dress she bought. She was playing her part, the proud mom, loving wife. Williams watched, quietly amused, as she rehearsed her lines. "This is such a special day," she beamed. "I want it to be perfect." "It will be," he replied. And it would. She had no idea just how perfect. He slipped the envelope into his jacket and headed to work. Another day at Driftline Construction, solving problems and delivering on time. That night at the restaurant, everything unfolded exactly as expected. Sandra erupted before she even finished reading the first page. "You bastard." Her voice cut across the room like a siren. Heads turned. Glasses paused midair. A couple at the corner table froze. "Is there a problem?" the manager asked, appearing at Sandra's side. "Yes, there's a problem," she snapped, waving the papers. "My husband just—" She stopped herself, realizing the audience. "Please," Williams said gently. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" Her laugh rang out sharp. "You planned this. You knew I was going to—" She stopped again. The silence begged for a confession. But to admit it meant owning the ambush she'd staged. Her face flushed. "This isn't legal," she hissed. "You can't move our money." "I didn't," Williams said calmly. "I moved mine. Legally. Per the post-nup you signed when we refinanced the house." Dennis, his brother-in-law, shifted uncomfortably. "Sandra, maybe you don't," she barked. "Don't you take his side." "I'm not," Dennis said. "Just, maybe this isn't the time or place." But it was far too late for that. Sandra stood, still gripping the documents, and looked toward the bar. Troy tried to shrink into the shadows, but everyone saw him. "Tell them," she ordered. "Tell them what we talked about." Troy froze. He clearly hadn't signed up for this. "Not like this. Not public. Not messy. Tell them how you make me feel alive. How much better you are than him." The entire restaurant had gone silent. Even the clatter from the kitchen had stopped. Troy hesitated, then walked slowly to her side. "Babe," he said, awkwardly resting a hand on her shoulder. "Let's just go. We don't need this." That was William's confirmation. They had planned this moment. Rehearsed it. Counted on his silence. But they hadn't planned on the envelope. "Go ahead," William said. "Leave." But Sandra read page 3 first. She flipped to the last page. Her hands trembled. "The house," she whispered, "is in Lena's name," Williams replied. "As of yesterday." So is the cabin, and the boat, and most of the savings. All done legally. Just good planning. Sandra stammered. You can't do this. I already did, he said. Lena finally spoke. Dad, what's going on? Williams looked over and met his daughter's eyes. And my daughter, smart, kind, nothing like the mess her mother was making. I said, your mother has decided to start a new life. I'm just making sure she gets to do that without destroying yours in the process. Sandra sat down hard, still staring at the papers. The fire was gone from her face. Reality had landed. She finally saw that while she was busy plotting her dramatic exit, I had quietly prepared her landing. When? She asked. Her voice had shrunk. When did you know? I could have lied, made it easier. But Lena deserved the truth. And Sandra didn't deserve the soft version anymore. The hotel receipt, I said. Cedar Rapids. 6 months ago. Sandra's mother, Joyce, finally spoke. What hotel receipt? Sandra threw me a glare sharp enough to draw blood. She hadn't planned to tell her mother about Troy. That came later, after the divorce. Once she'd rewritten the story. Once she'd painted me as the reason it all fell apart. She said she went to a wellness seminar. I explained. But Troy was the main attraction. Sandra, Joyce said, her voice hard. What is he talking about? It's not what you think, Mom. It's exactly what she thinks, I said. 6 months of secrets. 6 months of plotting to turn our daughter's graduation into your personal soap opera. Troy shifted in his seat. Their narrative, Sandra the victim, me the villain, was crumbling. That script didn't include hotel bills or lying to your mother. I want the whole story, Lena said. Her voice was level, but her eyes were swimming. You want to ruin our family tonight? Then you owe me the truth. Sandra looked at Troy, then at Lena. It's complicated. It's not, I cut in. She's been having an affair. She was going to drop that bomb tonight and blame me for reacting badly. Only I didn't react. I planned. Silence swallowed the room. It was as if time slowed. Dennis finally broke it. Williams, how long have you been planning this? 3 months, I said, since the career change comment. You've been lying to me for 3 months. Sandra shrieked. No. I've been protecting myself for 3. You've been lying for 6. That's when Joyce stood up. Barely 5 feet, but she carried the weight of generations. Sandra Elizabeth, she said, in a voice sharp as a blade. You tell me what's going on. Right now. Sandra broke. Not with rage, but with shame. I didn't mean for this to happen, she said. I felt invisible. Williams works so much. We never connect. So you cheated? Joyce snapped. Sandra looked at Troy, but he was already distancing himself. This wasn't the fantasy he'd signed up for. I think I should go, Troy muttered. Yeah, I said. I think you should. He left without another word. Sandra cried harder. The drama was done, but the fallout was just beginning. She picked up the documents again. This can't all be legal. Dennis, I asked. He finally spoke. The post-nup holds. Williams protected everything acquired after it was signed. What about alimony? Sandra, he said, carefully, you handed him grounds for a fault divorce in front of witnesses. But I gave up my career. You work part-time, Lena said quietly. Dad paid for everything. Lena, honey, you don't understand. No, Mom, I do. You betrayed us. And Dad shielded me from it. Joyce nodded slowly. Your father's a good man. He didn't deserve this. And what do I deserve? Sandra asked. You threw that away when you started lying, I said. The manager reappeared, visibly nervous. Folks, we do have other guests. We're leaving, I said. I stood, left money on the table, enough for the bill and then some. Williams, Sandra said, as I helped Lena gather her things. As Lena helped me with my jacket, she said, we need to talk. We just did, I replied. In front of everyone you wanted to impress. You got your moment, Sandra. You told them all how much better you deserve. Now you're going to find out what better looks like when you're 49, jobless, broke, and husbandless. The house, Lena's, the cars, the boat, the cabin. Also Lena's. Sandra had signed the documents that made it possible. I didn't know what I was signing, she muttered. You knew exactly what you signed. Your lawyer explained every word. You just never thought you'd trigger them. Sandra looked around at the once friendly faces. Now they were cold, or sad, or just disappointed. Mom, she said to Joyce. Joyce shook her head. You made your choice, Sandra. Live with it. I kissed Joyce goodbye, shook hands with the men. My sister Beth hugged me tight. You okay? She whispered. I will be, I said. Lena and I walked out together. Sandra called out, but we didn't stop. In the parking lot, Lena finally broke. I'm sorry, Dad, she sobbed. I'm so sorry she did that. I held her close as she cried. None of this is your fault, I said. You graduated with honors. That's what matters. The rest is just noise. We stood there for a while, watching cars roll in and out. Families with quiet dinners. No drama. No explosions. What happens now? Lena asked. Now we go home, I said, and figure out what's next. 3 days later, Sandra called. Williams, we need to talk. About what? About fixing this. Working things out. I was at Driftline Construction, coordinating a shipment to Omaha. There's nothing to fix, I said. You made your choice. Troy and I, it's not working. He thinks I'm too old. I leaned back in my chair. Not my problem. Please. I made a mistake. I was confused. I'll sign anything. Counseling, whatever you want. Anything. Yes. Then don't call me again. I hung up. An hour later, my lawyer called. Sandra's attorney wants to meet. She's claiming the post-nup was signed under duress. I laughed. Dennis Peterson witnessed it. So did 2 bank officers. She had her own lawyer. She's also asking for settlement. She can take what she brought into the marriage. Her clothes, her car, and the debt from Troy's gifts. That's it. Next morning, Sandra showed up at my place. Our old house. Lena's house now. I'm not letting you in, I said through the door. I just want to talk. So talk. I know you hate me, she said. But Lena shouldn't suffer for my mistakes. She's not. She has a home, a trust fund, and a father who stayed. Williams, please. I don't have a home. I opened the door. 3 days had aged her by years. No muck-up. Old clothes. Hair tied back. You should have thought of that before calling me a boring loser at our daughter's graduation. Sandra cried again. I know it was wrong, but I can't undo it. No, I said. You can't. I closed the door and returned to my coffee. Normal kitchen. Quiet house. 6 months later, I was fixing the fence. Lena walked out with 2 beers. How's school? Good. Mom called again. Sandra had been calling since the divorce. Lena listened, then shared the gist. What now? She works at a gym in Ankeny. She asked about Christmas. What did you say? Told her she made her choice. That's my girl. We sat on the porch, beers in hand. The yard looked good. Better than when Sandra complained about every detail. Do you miss her? Lena asked. I thought about it. I miss who I thought she was. But not the woman who tried to destroy us for entertainment. Good, Lena said. Because Troy dumped her. For someone younger. I raised an eyebrow. How do you know that? Rebecca told me. She works at the gym. I laughed. Couldn't help it. It's not funny, Dad. No, I said, wiping my eyes. It's perfect. We finished our beers, watching the sun go down over our yard. Just us. No drama. No lies. No personal trainers. Sandra got exactly what she wanted, a chance to find out if the grass was greener. It wasn't.